to guys. I feel like it wasn't that long ago where it was like, different preseason guys were getting hurt left and right. And knock on wood, we haven't really had any major any fantasy assets, I should say, outside of probably Matthew Stafford. This is probably the biggest one where he's still not practicing, but for the most part, we've been fairly healthy, and hopefully that continues. Holler, man, how is it out in LA with in Rams land?
It's good. Yeah, I mean the biggest talk is Stafford. I'm sure he'll be fine when all said and done. The beginning of the season, you can't keep that guy off the field. So I mean, I still worry a little bit with it's not good hearing about back injuries, and he was gonna practice and he didn't practice. He wasn't ready, and so it doesn't sound good. But you know what? I'm confident that everything will be just fine when it rolls through season or week 1. Excuse me.
Yeah, I think he'll be out there. I think I just worry about how slow does he start, week 1. What's the connection with Devontae Adams look like? I think, him and Puka obviously are going to be fine. They've been together for a while, but there's also, Terrence Ferguson in the offense.
Yeah.
I think this hurts him too. There's not a lot of time. I do find it kind of ironic too that there's that clip out there of Devontae Adams being like, "Man, I got to get out of here," because talking about Jimmy Garoppolo, and that might very well be his quarterback going forward, which is kind of funny. But
yep. So it is what it is. I think it's obviously a different Jimmy G, but I think with Sean McVay, he will just ask him what he needs to do, and then that defense will pick up the slack for them. But yeah, nobody wants to see Jimmy G out there, to be honest. We want to see Stafford. We want to see Stafford for fantasy and all those guys. And so I think the biggest thing is just Adams and Ferguson. Those two guys, they're not getting that connection during practice. So I'm sure next week rolls around, Stafford will be there and we'll be fine. But it's not good to hear.
I think it's just one of those things, the longer it goes on, the more kind of concerned you get, even if it's, there's still time, right? We still have a month before the season starts. It's just a little worrisome, especially with, fantasy drafts coming up around the corner. I know, for redraft, I think, I have one starting next weekend. And so it's one of those things where it's you need to get a resolution before you feel confident drafting Matthew Stafford. So
exactly. And also I think in redraft, I mean, you may take Matthew Stafford if you just kind of punt on QB, but most of the time, traditional redraft is one QB, so I think most of the time you're not really relying on Matthew Stafford, but he's a guy that is somebody that is nice in the later rounds if you're going to punt on QB. And now you're kind of well, crap, that was my go-to guy, right? Because I think later, the more you wait on a QB, it kind of falls off and you are going to end up going week in, week out, picking up waivers for QBs versus, you'd feel comfortable with rolling with just Stafford. So yeah, I'm with you there. I have a couple, I only have a couple redrafts and they're with, local people here, and my stepdad and stepbrother, and we all have both of them have keepers to it. So it's kind of weird. And, just because we've never had the players go back into the pool. So it's just I've gotten Alvin Kamara for the 15th round for the last 6 years. And I think it's, in my opinion, just time to, reset, but that's all right.
For sure.
I mean, I think the biggest thing is just I'm kind of over redraft,
You're over redraft, that you said?
Yeah.
I'll always enjoy redraft. It's always fun. I just enjoy drafting, which is also why I like best ball a lot, just because I can do a bunch of drafting.
Yeah. No, I think best ball is different, I think. But in other news, so context with how much Ron has PTO, unlimited PTO for Ron. We got to keep him fresh, so
we got to save him for the regular season. He's
exactly.
He's on a pitch count, and we're keeping him fresh for when it matters. So don't worry about Ron; he'll be all right. Speaking of someone who should be fresh, James Cook just signed his contract out in Buffalo and is returned to the practice field. He got a 4-year deal. I know he was looking for, hopefully, I think he was saying he won $20 million. Got just a little under that at about $12 million a year. So he got a 4-year deal, $48 million, $30 million that's guaranteed. I I don't know the full contract details. I would imagine that fourth year is kind of like a dummy year, so it's probably looks a little bit better than that. And year three probably has an option, so he's probably getting closer to like 2-3 years for the 30 million guaranteed, which isn't terrible, right? Like that's a pretty solid deal. Does this change your opinion of him either in dynasty or redraft?
Yeah, so I've had a pretty busy week with work, so I was trying to catch up over the last couple of days in the Discord, and I know some people were like, "Yeah, this is probably good for James Cook. He's going to, kind of solidify his ranking, and maybe he'd go up a little bit." But in my opinion, I think where he's at, he's already a little too high, and I think this contract doesn't, in my opinion, the only thing it does is kind of solidify where he's going to be versus like us feeling like it's a it's a better situation, right? And I think the amount of touchdowns I think we touched on it last week, but the amount of touchdowns he had last year with 16 is a little bit outrageous, right? And the year
Mhm.
before he had 3, I think it was. So we're going to get obviously we're going to get some regression there. And so for me, I think he's a little bit too high, and he's more of like a firm, running back too, somebody that you feel good with is your secondary running back in that spot. And so for me, I think it's much better to have him on the Bills and, have him go to a team that's really not competing. And, we're not exactly entirely sure what's going to happen with the team. So that part's good. But for me, it's more James Cook, the player, right? He last year was solely good, in my opinion, because of the touchdowns. I know he had 1,000 yards, but 16 touchdowns is going to be the bulk of your points there, right? And so I think we're going to get some regression there. And so for me, he's still a little bit too high. And even though he got his contract, I think he might have, at the end of the season, might actually dip in the rankings than anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think if those touchdowns go back to like a normal number, like maybe around like 8 or so,
Yeah.
I think his production goes way down. And it's
Yep.
not like this contract changes the fact that he's going to suddenly be on the field more. He still can't pass block. He's a liability in that aspect, so he's not going to be on the field in 2-minute situations. Um, it's funny. He's like a receiving back that can only play on first and second down.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a wonky situation, but um, uh,
And Ray Davis is very good, right? We've
Davis is
seen it.
good.
He's
So is
good,
Ty Johnson.
and yeah, I've heard Josh Allen talk about how Ty Johnson is the best secondary back in the NFL. So we know Josh Allen likes Ty Johnson. I don't really
Mhm.
think he's going to take away from much, but they're going to sprinkle in Ray Davis and Ty Johnson, right? And so I think 1,000 yards is probably the cap for James Cook, and then if he doesn't get those 16 touchdowns, then bring that down to 8, like you were saying. And man, that's, an okay
Awful.
running back too.
Mhm. No, for sure. So I think he's kinda right. I think he's okay where he's at, kind of as like that running back, like 13 to 18 range. I think that's kinda where he is.
Yep.
Um, Going out to Green Bay, Jordan Love had a surgery, this past week to repair a torn ligament in his left thumb. Luckily, it's his non-throwing hand. It's one of those things where they said he should be ready week 1. It is just a little worrisome. They said it was like a minor procedure. I don't know. I feel like if a quarterback's hands, I don't think anything's necessarily minor, but I know it's at least it's not on his throwing hand, so he should be fine. I just worry about how does it impact his grip of the football? And
Yep.
then he's missing a lot of training camp, right? So he has, Matthew Golden is there as a rookie. They have some different, receivers coming in. They need to build rapport with. He missed a lot of last year too, so it's one of those things where it's like the Joe Burrow effect, right? When you miss a lot of training camp, you start the year. Do you start off kind of sloppy? Do you start off kind of slow?
Yep.
It's more that kind of a concern, I think, than like a long term worry for me. But what are your thoughts on Jordan Love there?
Yeah. Agreed. I was like trying to figure out when I saw the news, I was trying to figure out if that was, an injury in a preseason game or what. And it was. I think his thumb kind of got hit by a defender. So obviously it's good that it's not on his throwing hand, but getting him off the field practice and things like that's not good, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
especially if they really want, I know I don't want to, we can jump ahead, but like they've been, talking up Matthew Golden a bunch, but now if you take Jordan Love off the field for practice, how good is that connection going to be? So for anything, I think it just kind of hurts Jordan Love and the Packers, right? And so I know Jordan Love's been around for a little bit, but exactly like you said, it's not good to take away from those reps. at practice. And, I obviously don't think he was probably going to play in any more of the preseason games, but still, I think those practice reps are super important, especially because I like Jordan Love, but I think he can get better and he needs those practice reps.
He hasn't been on the field a ton in his career. I mean, he sat out those first few years behind Aaron Rodgers, but even since he took over as a starter, he's missed a lot of time with injuries. So this is becoming a bit of a worrisome trend with Jordan Love.
Yeah.
I didn't move him like in my dynasty rankings. Like I'm not like concerned about that. It's just one of those knocks, right? It's a blemish on his kind of his profile, but.
And I think kind of going into this off season, any startups I had, I was kind of like, do I really want to, do I really want to take Jordan Love, or are there other guys around there, or can I wait a little bit on QB and, pick somebody else? And that's kind of where I've been at. And this injury doesn't really, add or decrease from that. Right. And so I just think the biggest thing is, another injury, another blip on his, on his, resume. And then again, for me, the biggest thing is probably hurts Matthew Golden.
Yeah. So Matthew Golden, that's a great segue. I have a quote here from one of their Packers beat reporters, Zach Cruz. He said, "I haven't heard the entirety of the Packers organization talk about a rookie like this with Matthew Golden in a long time. Every time someone is asked about him, they answer some variation of, yeah, he's good, and he's only scratching the surface of his potential." That's awesome to hear. I think I was a big Matthew Golden fan coming out of Texas. I know there was a lot of people out there that were like, "Oh, he never, he went for 1,000 receiving yards in college, and so he sucks." Like yada yada yada. He's a good player. This is like the first time they spent a first-round draft pick on a wide receiver in a long time, maybe ever. Actually,
I think it's ever.
I think ever. And this apparently he's been like there's been a steady drumbeat of him performing, and so I really like Matthew Golden here. I think he's in for a big season. I think he was kind of one of the targets I took kind of in the back half of the first round in rookie drafts, and I think he's going to well outpay that. And then if you look at redraft, he's down at wide receiver 50 right now. And at that shot, like if let's say he sucks the first half of the season, like or the first like month, like drop him, whatever. He didn't cost you anything, but that's the kind of profile where at wide receiver 50, if he comes out guns a blazing, he could win you a league.
Exactly. And those are the type of guys that I like to, because I do play in some keepers and stuff. So I'm really hoping that I can get him later in the draft, and then he kind of burst onto the scene, right? Not to like boost my own bubble, but I really was liking him out of Houston, and then I was like super stoked that he went to Texas. I was like a little disappointed how he played, but I do think the whole Texas team was up and down, a lot of injuries with their running back room. And so there was a lot of up and down. Isaiah Bond is a good player, but obviously he's got off the field issues. That's why he's not signed. But to me, like he was their best player. He showed up when he needed to, and so maybe the numbers weren't like great, but he is at the end of the day, a really good football player. And so to me, I think we're going to just see that this year. And I think he's going to end up being that number one target in Green Bay, and I think it may hurt Jordan Reed a little bit, but for me, I just think Matthew Golden's going to be the go-to guy there in Green Bay.
Oh, Jaden Reed is in a walking boot. The last I saw,
yes,
and Romeo Doubs is injured too. So I think it's a good thing that Matthew Golden's standing out because the room's very thin. So he needs to do something here. Another rookie wide receiver also in the same division, Isaac TeSlaa. Apparently he's been turning heads in camp and is working his way into a role within the offense. I think some of the reports I've seen that he's kind of taken over the X receiver role from Tim Patrick, which I would hope so. Tim Patrick's I like Tim Patrick, but I mean at this point in his career, I would hope someone could beat him out for that role. I'm not sure how much volume he's going to get, but just something to keep an eye on. Like if that should be a good offense, pretty heavy passing volume. If he's on the field a bunch, like that's someone that could be fantasy relevant very quickly. So,
because you just outside of the three, or I guess we can call it like five main guys on the offense. After that, Tim Patrick, there's just been a steady stream of like veteran guys, and they really haven't had anybody else for that third spot, right? And so I think TeSlaa can come in and maybe he's not like a week in, week out guy that you really are going to rely on, but I think he can be, a solid fill in for a bye week or, injuries. And then if we do see an injury from either of Amon-Ra St. Brown or Jameson Williams, then I think he could get a big boost there. So, I'll be watching, right? I think he was a nice player to grab in like the fourth, maybe the end of the third, fourth rounds. And so, but yeah, I mean, it's always nice to hear, that a player's doing well. And I don't think an organization like the Detroit Lions just kind of throw that out there for anybody, right? I think there are some areas, teams that just throw things out there and just say, oh, this player's doing extremely well, whatever. But I think if you hear it out of, Detroit, you got to actually take a little bit of weight to that.
And their draft picks have been pretty awesome, especially their early draft picks the last few years. So this is some just to kind of keep an eye on there to see how things progress. All right. On that note, let's get into the preseason takeaways. I did some degeneracy watching some all 22 film earlier today on some of the preseason games, trying to get a little more notes here. But the first guy I want to talk about is Marvin Mims. I'm starting to come around on Marvin Mims a little bit. Like, I know you were really high on him coming out of Oklahoma, and I think his analytic profile was awesome. He hasn't been used super well in the NFL so far. Like, for example, last year, his highest snap rate was 47%. When he's been on the field, he's been awesome. He was the highest scoring wide receiver in points per snap last year. It's just he just wasn't on the field a ton, right? What was promising about this last game was Bo Nix and the starters played 19 snaps in week 1. Mims was on the field for 16 of those snaps, which is 84%, which is more than double. Well, not quite double. I really gotta stop doing math live on the show, but significantly higher than his previous high snap total. I know it's a preseason game. And then 15 of those 16 snaps were played out wide, so not even in the slot. So that's pretty awesome. Now, granted, he only got the one target, so like the workload wasn't awesome, but he was on the field. I think that's the more exciting thing. And my first thought was, okay, was Courtland Sutton not out there? But he was out there too. So it was the whole offense was out there. Man, I'm starting to buy into Marvin Mims. I'm a little. Where do you come down on Mims? Like, is this just kind of like is this fool's gold in the preseason, or is this actually like matter?
Well, so, when I was looking at the notes last night and I was trying to pull up and see, like, is there more to this? And like, I'm pretty confident that they're just like kind of figuring out what Marvin Mims is best at, right? Last year, he did a ton of returning work in, punt returns and kickoffs. And then he also last year had 6 touchdowns, right? So I just think they're going to start to use him more. They do need a secondary wide receiver, right? They have a bunch of guys after Courtland Sutton, and nobody has really taken a step forward. So I do think he this year he could take that next step, right? I think they're going to use him more. This could be just my kind of homerism a little bit, but I just think I've always thought he's a good player, and like I thought it took a little bit of time. And then also, if you remember back, he was the first, pick of the Sean McVay era in Denver, right? So I know that is a player that Sean McVay likes. I think they're just trying to figure out thank you, Sean Payton likes and the best way to use him. So, I just think this season he could take another step forward and be very like usable and be a very nice wide receiver 3/flex. So it's very, very good to see him on the field with the ones, running and, actually being on the field, especially when Courtland Sutton is also on the field as well.
I agree. Let me put you on the spot. What in dynasty leagues, what are you willing to pay to acquire Marvin Mims?
I would probably pay a late second and be okay with that.
Okay.
And then, if I would probably say like anywhere from like 2.7 to 2.12 because if you feel like your team's going to be good, then you're going to give that pick away. The second pick, you don't exactly know where it's going to land. So then I would say definitely a 26 second. And I think mainly it was just like I would bolster my flex play right there. If I'm going after Marvin Mims, then that's somebody that just I'm trying to add to my bench or add to my flex players, right? And so I do think it's going to take some time, but I think now would be the time to buy him, right? Versus wait till he actually, starts to do some things, and then you're going to have to pay a lot more for him.
Yeah, no, I think I feel like if you offer a late second for Marvin
agreed.
Mims, you're probably going to get him probably like 90% of the time.
And I would say probably the majority of people would be like, no, I'd probably just the most I'd send is a third. But I don't think if people have him, again, maybe that's just because I like him more, but I don't think people are going to move off of him for a third.
Like I was just thinking that myself, like I don't know if I would want to send a two, but I also am not going to accept a third, for him. So it's one of those things where it's like they fall in that weird area where it's like you kind of have to overpay a little bit and hope that you're right. And also at the end of the day, like a late second round pick, I'm fairly cavalier with my late seconds. They're not going to come back to bite you too bad, right?
Exactly.
If you miss. So
and that's kind of why I picked that, right? Is it's like the majority of people probably don't want to move him for a second, but I'm okay with that, right? Because that, especially if you feel good with that team and it's like the back half of the second, the percentage of getting a good player there is pretty slim, right? But yeah, I was pulling up some trades on Dynasty Daddy, and I saw one just player for player, Jalen Noel for Marvin Mims. Who you got there?
I'll take Mims. I didn't really like Noel to begin with.
Same here. That was like the other ones were just kind of all over the place. Large, DJ Giddens and Keenan Allen for Lambert Smith and Marvin Mims, like, whatever.
That's like the preseason all hype squad there.
Exactly. And then there's about three here that were Marvin Mims for a 26 second, 27 second, 26 second again. So I think the second is where it's at. Where like if you're moving him, that's nice to get a second back. And if you are in on him and you're going to pay a second, I think that's kind of like the best spot.
I agree. I'm interested to see what happens with Mims this week. So that's something I want to keep an eye on to see if the snap count continues, and then obviously into the regular season too. But definitely promising for the Marvin Mims stands. I know there's been a lot of hype on him this summer, and I've been a little reluctant, kind of dragging my feet, but I'm starting to buy in. That usage was beneficial. Like it was good.
Absolutely, and I'm all for it. I really need some good Marvin Mims. I have a signed Marvin Mims jersey that I've been tucked away just to wait until he's good, and then maybe I'll switch it out for my stupid Kyle Pitts jersey.
Dude, this could be the year Kyle Pitts and Marvin Mims. Look at you. You'll have
to maybe I'll have to. Yeah,
exactly. Display both of them, man. I don't know.
Exactly.
All right, let's go to the Tennessee Titans. Cam Ward made his debut last week. It was kind of a mixed bag. He went 5 for 8. I started 0 for 2 on the night. It was one of those weird plays where it's like he started the first throw, he threw it into like a really tight window. His receiver just dropped it, whatever. The second one, he kind of like, dude, he did this like weird thing where he's kind of like trying to extend the play, and he kind of like threw it away, but also kind of didn't. And the ball landed in bounds, but like by nobody. And it was one of those things where like, dude, just huck it into the stands. And then on the second drive, he came back and he did a lot better, right? And that's when he found his connection with Calvin Ridley. He started making better decisions. He made a couple of really nice throws. He did one where he dropped one into the bucket over a linebacker and in between the safety, which is a really nice throw. It required a lot of touch. He did throw a ball that frankly should have been picked, but the defender dropped it. So he kind of got away with one there. I think the thought was, though, like he looked good. Like he looked like confident throwing the ball. I know it was the preseason. I don't think Tampa Bay was playing their starters, but still, right? Like he was making good decisions. And Calvin Ridley, dude, him and Ridley had a pretty nice connection. I think Ridley went 3 for 3 for 50 yards. So,
Yep.
what was your thoughts there on Cam Ward's debut and what that means for Calvin Ridley too?
Yeah, so my biggest takeaway was that connection with Calvin Ridley is like going into the season, we were all pretty,
Mhm.
pretty high, not necessarily high, but like Calvin Ridley is going to be a nice player this year. Only
Mhm.
guy there really, and then we know Cam Ward can throw the ball. So for me, I think it was good to see Cam Ward looked very poised and looked pretty good. I just don't think Cam Ward's going to be this great fantasy player, but it was good to see him, you know, look solid in his first NFL snaps. Right, there's plenty there to grow from and plenty to learn from. But I think the biggest takeaway is that connection with Calvin Ridley in terms of fantasy. I think Calvin Ridley is going to be. I, I don't want to say a monster, but I think he's going to get a lot of targets, get a lot of touches this year, and we're just hoping that some of those get into touchdowns. I worry a little bit there if the offense really can get all the way to the to the end zone. But I think the numbers are going to be there, right? If Calvin Ridley can get those touchdowns, he'll be probably a league winner this year, especially
So
in redraft.
I am very bullish on Calvin Ridley. In Dynasty, he's down to like wide receiver like 44, which is nutter butters. In redraft, Ridley is I just had it and I lost him. Hold on.
I think he's like at you know in the 40s as
31.
well. 31.
Yeah,
Okay.
31. So he's up a little bit, but so let me just start the conversation by saying this. Do you think Cam Ward will be better or worse than Mason Rudolph was last year for the Tennessee Titans?
Better, and that's not really. I don't think that's too much of a ask either.
I don't either. And so the reason I was kind of setting that I was leading the witness a little bit. So the reason for that last year in Mason Rudolph's 5 starts, do you know offhand where Calvin Ridley was in those 5 games in terms of like wide receiver, like PPR points?
I would say somewhere in the wide receiver 2 range, so anywhere from 13 to 24 for all our non.
He was a wide receiver 12.
Nice.
And the impressive part about that was he only scored 1 touchdown during those 5 games. So even if the Titans offense doesn't score a bunch, I think the volume is there and such that Calvin Ridley could be a low end wide receiver 1. Maybe that's the high end, right? Maybe he's more in the wide receiver 2 range. Even still, he's going to well pay off a wide receiver 31 price tag for redraft and wide receiver 44 for dynasty. Like, I know he's a little bit older, but he's still going to play for another 2-3 years at a pretty good clip, especially with Cam Ward there as Ward gets better.
Yeah.
Dude, I love Calvin Ridley. I think like if you're a contending team, I think a
Oh
second
yeah.
round pick, yeah, like I'll send that.
Oh,
Maybe I'll
smash.
even send 2 twos for Calvin Ridley. Like I
Yeah.
think
I just
he
pulled
is a
up.
league winner. Like, and I hesitate to use that because of my Zach Moss takes last year, but I really think Calvin Ridley is a good player. And like, who else they're going to throw the ball to, right? Like Jacob Conklin was a guy. I know they have a couple day 3 rookie wide receivers, but they don't have anything that's like, oh my god, they got to get him the ball. It's Calvin Ridley. Like he is the guy there.
Yep. 100%. I was just pulling up some trades too, and just like he's cheap, and I think he's going to pay off whatever. Outside of sending a first, I think he's going to pay off to kind of like
Sure.
whatever you send, right? A couple that I've seen here: Calvin Ridley for Trey Benson in the second. I'll do that all
Oh yeah,
day.
all day.
Let's see what else is here that is noteworthy. Like this one, I like as well: Calvin Ridley and Jacoby Myers for Jack Beck and a 26 first. The reason I like that one is because I don't really think Jack Beck is. I know he was going in the second, but I don't really know what to expect. And if you've
Well,
been in the Discord at all, we love Jacoby Myers. So getting 2 of those guys there, basically for a first and a third, to me is solid there. And then one other one was Calvin Ridley for a second and a third. Right, that one. The couple
oh
other
yeah,
ones, the first
easy.
2 I talked about were smashes. Right, I would have to think about it twice if I really want to move it first. But kind of what we know about 26, I'm not saying 26 is totally bad, but that's a fine return with Calvin Ridley and Jacoby Myers if you're moving that first.
I think if I get Calvin Ridley and I win a championship, I'll sleep just fine at night. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like missing out on that late, the 112.
Yep.
I don't think you have to. I don't think you have to send the first is the thing. Like I think the two and a player, right? I think gets the job done. Or like I really like that Betch and the 26 first trade for kind of two like Ridley and
Yeah.
Jacoby Myers. Like I love that kind of a deal where it's like, okay, I'll send the first and like a maybe like a lesser player for two like really solid vets. Going back to the Betch thing, like the report out of camp is like Dante Thornton has been the one that's the receiver that's
Yeah.
been showing out in Vegas. Apparently Gino loves him too. He's fast. He's like 6'5" and runs like a 4.34 40 or something ridiculous. Like no human should move that fast. Betch has been more of like a blocker. So
yeah.
we'll see.
And I was every time I saw him going in the second, I was like, I can't do that, right? So that's why I kind of in my mind it's like, okay, I'm moving a first and a third kind of thing. Or if anything, now we don't really need to put the draft pick on it anymore. Like I think Jack Beck will be a fine NFL player, but nothing in terms of fantasy. So to get two solid veterans that you're going to feel good about to put in your lineup for a first, I'm good with.
I agree.
I have one more here actually. That's a little more interesting.
Yeah.
Would you move Jaden Reed for Calvin Ridley and a second?
I get Ridley and a 2 for Jaden Reed.
Yep.
Yeah, I do all day.
Yeah, I might do. If I felt really good about it, say Jaden Reed's my like third or fourth wide receiver, and I might move him straight up. Right, Jaden Reed's got a walking boot. Out of camp, Matthew Golden's the guy. I know Jaden Reed. Everyone loves Jaden Reed, and I might bite my own words here, but I think I'd move Reed for Ridley.
I get, yeah. So I mean, I think the thing with like Reed is obviously he's a lot younger. He's about 5 years younger.
Yep.
But the other thing too is that like Jaden Reed is like he's so up and down.
Yep.
Based on like usage, and I don't know if I could pull a trigger on it. I would probably want something coming back on the Ridley side.
Well, I don't think
I get where you're coming from though. Like,
I don't think you have to do it straight up. I think most of the time you can get a 2 or a 3, or if they're being stingy, maybe like a 2-3 swap. But if it like
there you
at
go.
the end,
I like that better.
I think a couple weeks down in the season, you're going to be like, wow, Calvin Ridley is kind of basically what I'm getting at is Calvin Ridley is going to outproduce his rankings right now. So like, I don't think I would go out there and just tonight send all my Jaden Reeds for Calvin Ridley, but I think that's more of a, bolstering your roster when it gets a little closer to, the beginning of the season before any more hype.
Oh, I like that. Moving on to another quarterback that showed pretty good promise. Bryce Young in Carolina. He played a couple drives in the preseason game. I thought he looked really comfortable. I thought he threw more kind of 50-50 balls that he didn't necessarily. Yeah, he played it more safe in years past. I felt like he was just kind of out there just letting it rip, dude. I think he's finally got some receivers he can kind of trust. He had one, and I'm sure you saw it, but like, it was ridiculous, dude. Like Tet was like breaking like outside, and he started throwing it at like the outbreak, and before Tet came back in, and like I think the ball kind of surprised him that it was there on him, and he dropped it. But like
those are the
ridiculous throw, dude. It was just like, yes, this is who we thought he was. That's who Carolina thought he was when they traded the farm to go up to 101 and get him. It made me really excited for Bryce Young. Just that throw. I know it didn't count and it was a preseason game, but it was like, that's what I needed to see out of him. Right. Like
totally. I think the biggest thing with preseason, right, is we can take away things from it and look at like the tendencies versus just being like, that's the player or that's what's going to happen. Right. But if he can build on that type of thing, and to me, the biggest takeaway, he's just, like you said, he looks so much more comfortable, right? The beginning of last year, he looked scared, looked
lost,
nervous, lost. Yeah. All those things. Right. And I think just first preseason game, looking at and seeing him look comfortable and actually playing super well was really, really good to see. One thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was Tet. Like I saw like probably both extremes. Like people are like, Tet's going to be amazing. And then some people were like, oh, well, Tet, he dropped the ball. He did this or that. That's what we knew of him. Right. And so I think kind of, merging those two things a little bit together is like, I think Tet's going to be a great player. I think he's going to have plenty of growth throughout that first year. But I think the biggest thing is Bryce Young, and now has a kind of a, an outside threat to throw the ball to. And there's plenty of other wide receivers that we don't really know how it's going to shake up, right? Adam Thielen, Xavier Leggett, Jalen Coker. I know Coker had a good preseason game. I know the coach has been hyping him up. So for me, taking all that in is like, I think Bryce Young's going to have a really, really good season. And I think it's really, really good to see him playing comfortable and confident.
No, for sure. And the thing on not Jatavian Sanders, Jalen Coker is Xavier Leggett got kicked out of that game.
Yes,
like early. He started throwing, dude. He just started just throwing haymakers.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure what happened. I just saw him square.
Somebody stole his squirrel.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I saw the replay of that. I was like, what is going on? This is a preseason game. But hey, I like the,
I like the fire.
Yeah, that's the type of player that Leggett is. I wish he could put that more into some of his actual routes
catching
the ball. Yeah. But
exactly,
to each their own, but yeah, I think that's where some of the Coker hype came from. And to me, I don't know. I'm not really in on the Coker. I have some, if he pans out, great. If not, but at the end of the day, he was undrafted. There's not too much weight, riding on him with the team. Maybe the coach likes him, but can he really get on the field is a different story.
I think he's a really good role player.
Yep.
I think he's going to need an injury to one of, McMillan, Leggett, or Thielen to consistently see the field. But I think he's a good player. It's just, I don't know. That doesn't always translate to like a good fantasy asset, at least not right away. Right. So, but
yeah, because he could make some plays, and he could be solid here and there, but he's not going to be a guy that you're like, oh, I have Jalen Coker, can't wait to put him in my lineup. It's like, I don't even know if I'll put him in my lineup on a bye week, right? It's like, that's a guy that I'm like, crap, I have to put him in my lineup type of thing.
If you're putting Jalen Coker in your lineup like week 1, you're probably not in a good spot in that league.
Totally. So, I hope you have multiple firsts for multiple years, right?
And especially your own first, because it's probably gonna be early. So
yep.
All right, let's dive into the Jaguars running back room. This has been an enigma, dude. It's all right. So I'll just kind of set the scene. We'll roll it in here. So Travis Etienne took the first reps with Trevor Lawrence. He played every snap that T.Y. was out there. Etienne was out there. This came after all the reports that Bigsby was just tearing up camp, right? Tank came in the second drive after that. He looked okay. Bashal Tootin, interestingly enough, was the fourth running back to enter the game. LaQuint Allen came in third on third down, which that was another thing. So Tank Bigsby, they took him out on third down. Like, he's just not going to be a receiving back. That's just not his jam. He's going to be a first and second down runner. Tootin came in kind of more like in the second half, and he played well into the fourth quarter. He had a nice touchdown run. He also, okay, so that's how that happened. But then where it gets interesting, right? I was feeling really good about my Travis Etienne takes. Where things get dicey, earlier this week, we get reports that Travis Etienne, had cramps and left practice and didn't show up to his media responsibilities. Then there was like a weird thing with like Tank Bigsby tweeting out, basically calling him a liar. And then Bashal Tootin, I guess there's reports of him running with the ones. So all this to say, I don't know what the hell's happening in Jacksonville. There's 3 running backs. I don't know what they're doing with them. What? How do you decipher this? Because it's just a cluster, is what I can gather.
That's the best way to describe it. I think the biggest thing is, we have a new coaching staff, and they drafted, Tootin and LaQuint Allen. So I think those are the guys they want to, go after and make sure that they, are actually like, those are the guys they want to succeed. We've heard so many rumors about Etienne, maybe being on the trading block, maybe moving on. Last year he had a bunch of injuries, and then Tank Bigsby had a solid season. So for me, it's like, in the middle, like kind of early summer, I was like, okay, I think it's going to be ETN, but then now hearing this, like, it's not good. Like, there's some animosity between ETN and Bigsby, then Tootin's getting the first team reps. It's like, I don't know who they're going to use any week, and I don't want any part of it.
That's fair. Dude, that's fair. Because I don't know either. And that's the thing too. Like, Travis Etienne, like I watched the first couple drives, or the first drive where he played. He didn't look great. He looked fine. Some of it was situational, right? Like they put him on like a 3rd and 1. One of his carries was on a 3rd and 1. So like you don't expect him to bust like a huge run, but like also it didn't look like the vision was quite there. Like I felt like the first run, he kind of had like a cutback lane, didn't really take it. He made a nice play on like a screen though, so that was good, but he didn't do himself any favors really. Tootin probably looked the best out of all of them. Not granted, he was playing against guys who probably aren't going to make the roster for the Steelers, so that's to be expected. But if this is one where I feel like if I am in a redraft today, I'm honestly probably not taking any of them, and I'm just going to be like, I'll take Trevor Lawrence, but because he looked good. I'll take the receivers, but I'm not touching this, dude. Like I want no part of it. It feels like it's going to be a headache, and you just don't know what you're going to see from week to week. And I would rather, I'm okay missing out. Like if someone breaks out, if someone is the breakout, it's probably going to be Tootin, who is going to be later in the season.
Yep.
I'm okay. Depending on his price, though, I think he's going to go too high, and I just don't. Yeah. I don't want to deal with it. So.
Yeah. So in redraft, these guys I don't want any part of, right? And then in Dynasty, if I have any of these guys, it's just kind of root for the guy you have, right? And unfortunately, most likely, we are not going to know week in, week out what they're going to do. No. I think all 4 of these running backs can be solid, right? Not great. And so I think they're going to rotate a lot of them, right? I think it's going to be situational. I think it's going to depend on where they are on the field and what down. So unfortunately, I think they're all just kind of cancel each other out, unless somebody starts to really, command the ball and really like utilize their touches really well. But I just don't exactly see that happening.
No, I don't either. And like Tank Bigsby, I think his workload is probably the most like predictable, but he's not going to get any passing game work. So like he has a cap on his like how useful he really can be, unless he just finds the end zone like 10 times.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is like, so I think Bigsby might be in on the red zone. Is 1st and 2nd in the red zone. 3rd down, maybe Tootin comes in, maybe ETN comes in. Maybe they start the season off with Bigsby and ETN. Who knows? But like some of the reports now, it's like I think they should move ETN if he's going to be, if some of the reports are true. So for me, I think it's just a little too messy. I'm just going to kind of take what I have, right? If I drafted any of them, just hold on to them. I think almost all of their values are kind of canceling each other out. I think there's a lot of hype with Tootin. He's can run, like he's very fast and but he has the fumbling issues. And so for me, I'm just kind of out.
I agree. I'm curious to see what the rotation looks like this week, right? If maybe Bigsby comes out with the ones, or maybe ET or Tootin comes out or maybe ETN comes out again, and they're just like it's just like a saga that has no merit to it. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I would say if ETN comes out again with the ones, then I think some of this background noise is just noise, and I think at the end of the day it'll be ETN. But I think they're going to utilize all the running backs, right? All 4 of them. I think, in the order, it would be like, ETN, Bigsby, and then Tootin. I think LaQuint Allen, I know he, played before Tootin in the last preseason game, but obviously I believe Tootin is better than LaQuint Allen. So
I do too. I just think Allen's probably their best like pass catcher on the team out of the running back room. So he might have himself a role just because he's good at that. So We shall
Well, we'll
see.
see. That one, I think you got to keep watching, and I think if you really betting on any of these running backs, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, dude, I wouldn't feel comfortable really betting on any of these guys in dynasty
Yeah.
or redraft. I don't. Tootin's probably the one I would want, but even still, like he was a 4th round pick. It's not like he had like high draft capital, right? And the hit rate on those kind of guys, I think it's been skewed lately because like Bucky Irving was so good last year, and like Kyron was a 5th round pick, but those are like the one offs, not the rule, right? And like
Yeah.
most of the time, those guys are just kind of nothing burgers. So um, we'll see, but. And speaking of running backs that I don't think are much of anything, Caleb
Let's
Johnson.
go.
Oh, it's a shame to see. Who would have thought? Honestly, he looked worse than I even thought. And I've been kind
Yeah.
of a big Caleb Johnson hater. He looked bad. Like he looked slow. He looked indecisive. He looked like he didn't know where he was supposed to be going. He was kind of stuttering. He was going down pretty easy on first contact. Like he didn't have any kind of contact balance. And he played later in the game too. It wasn't even like he was going against like the starters. He played pretty late, and so usually you think those guys are going to look a little better just because you're going against like the third stringers, and he still looked bad. Dude, I know you and I have both been kind of dumping on Caleb Johnson, but I felt like that was like, oh, this dude is even worse than I thought, and I don't want to put him in a grave after one preseason game, right? But it's just like he looked just lost.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you said it. It's one preseason game, but some of the things he was doing just, it didn't look good. You would want to see, we don't really care too much about the total stats and things like that. You want to look and see how they're, looking for the lanes and looking through the hole, looking for like an actual, running lane. But he was like going all the way outside, and like it was crazy.
Yeah.
It just looked messy, and wasn't sure what to do. Kind of, you hit it all right. And so, I was out on him, going into the process, and in rookie drafts. So I'm not going to take a victory lap after one preseason game, but I would be worried if I put a lot of those eggs in that basket. And for me, this is positive news for Jaylen Warren.
Oh, for sure. Jaylen Warren is a really good player. I think he's gonna get at least initially a lot of the workload. I think they want Caleb Johnson to be their guy, but at the same time, like he was a later pick in the 3rd round too. It wasn't like he was like an early 3rd round pick, and also the hit rate on 3rd round picks aren't great either. I know people like to point out, I think it was like the 2018 class that had like James Conner and a bunch of those guys who went in the third that were awesome, but it was like, okay, so we're going back 7 years to find examples of guys who have done well in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
And the offensive line in Pittsburgh is fine. I think is probably it's not going to do him as many favors as like what he was used to running behind in Iowa, right? And he was kind of a volume runner in Iowa too, and I don't know if he's going to get that.
Yeah, especially because Jaylen Warren, does really well with the touches he gets, right? And so that there's no reason to lean on one running back when you have another one that's solid. And I think that the biggest thing with Najee was that he was there every game, right? And so the volume he got, it didn't really matter. Like he like, and he was like, I know he was one of the, like, a little bit slower, but he actually was progressing and getting to the hole. So I just think I'm going to be continue watching closely with him. I just think you want to see a little bit of positivity, with the touches that he gets in the preseason game. And for me, those are all negative. I don't think I saw one positive thing.
Yeah, same. And it's one of those where it's like I have no shares, and I was like, okay, I feel good about my take so far on him. It's you never know, and
Yeah.
but he
And
looked worse than I thought too. So
and I don't think like the offensive line is like, one of the bottom offensive lines in the
it's
NFL.
fine.
It's like in the middle, right? And so you would like to see a little bit more, especially playing against the threes or the backups, right? And so just to
Just
see
no
that,
juice. Yeah.
and then to kind of see what he was doing, like going all the way on the outside versus just running through and finding that lane, to me is just not good.
There was a couple clips, and I know whatever, but like when you watch it, it felt like he had a pretty good like hole in the middle, and
Yeah, and he took that's what
he
I'm
just
yeah,
took it, he
exactly.
bounced it way out, and it's like
Yeah.
obviously I don't know the play call, I don't know where the play was designed, but it's like you would hope a runner would see that, right, and like
Yep.
hit the hole for positive yardage instead of kind of dancing. He, honest to God, he looked just like a Najee clone.
He did, yeah.
And it's like, well, they have a type, so
Yeah.
what are you
100%.
gonna do? On a more positive note, going out to Denver, RJ Harvey. So it was so funny. They brought out the depth chart, and he was listed as like running back 5. And then lo and behold, Bo Nix and the starters come out, and who's the running back there? It was RJ Harvey was the first runner, and he did look good. I think the interesting thing there was like I saw it was like Harvey out touched Dobbins 9-1. And obviously Harvey came out with the ones right away. I know J.K. Dobbins is new to the offense, but I think there was a lot of kind of talk that J.K. Dobbins would kind of dominate the backfield, at least initially, and then R.J. Harvey would work his way in. But this made it seem like, man, Harvey might be ready to go week 1 as like the guy, which wheels up. That's very exciting. What was your take on the Denver
Yeah,
situation?
100%. I thought it was hilarious when I saw he was on the 5th string running back. I was like, Sean
Right.
Payton again, right?
Such a clown. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, I mean, at the end of the day, it was really good to see he came out with the ones. Like, I think RJ Harvey is a lot better than what J.K. Dobbins is now. So I just think it's going to
100%.
be hard to keep RJ Harvey off the field. And then when you look at the game, he looked solid, right? He looked
Yeah,
solid
he looked
with the
good.
ones. So for me, I think just more and more, like maybe the first couple games of the season, maybe the first 2 or whatever, like he may not have these great, box scores, but I think by the 4 through 8, you're going to start to see like he is going to take over, and he's going to be that top running back in Denver. And I think a top running back in Sean Payton's offense is always going to be effective for fantasy terms.
Oh, 100%. And I think in terms of redraft, he's running back 23, which is probably about right, like where he should be going. In Dynasty, I think he's up even. Let's see. I just was checking this earlier.
I hate in Dynasty how high the like rookies like elevate.
It's wild. So he's actually only running back
Before the
19,
season,
which isn't
yeah,
terrible
right,
actually.
for
But
him,
like
that's pretty good. I feel like,
I I agree. That's actually right where I have him too. Would you take all right? So going back to the James Cook discussion, would you take Harvey or James Cook straight up?
oh man, Harvey.
I think I would too, right? I think it's one of those things where maybe it's like the unknown. It's like what was that Family Guy thing where it's like, oh, James Cook is James Cook, but RJ Harvey could be
And
anything.
I think we've talked about it a couple times, and I just think James Cook is, in my opinion, kind of where he's at because of all those touchdowns last year. If he didn't have those touchdowns last year, say he had 6 and 1,000 yards, he's going to be down at David Montgomery, Isaiah Pacheco range, right? And which is down at like running back 24, 23. So I think those touchdowns are really elevating James Cook, and I think there's plenty of running backs around that same spot that I'd rather have. RJ Harvey, Judkins. I know there's some question marks behind Judkins, right? He may not play, but taking that aside, I'd still have Judkins over him, Alvin Kamara over him. I know the age there is way different with Kamara and James Cook, but like you said, there might be a void year on year 4, and I don't see James Cook really being this like long, like a guy that's going to be good for many years.
I do too. I think James Cook is, some guys they can kind of age more gracefully. I don't think James Cook's skill set is that. I think
Yeah.
once some of his speed starts to go, like he's kind of just a one trick pony, right? Where he's fast and it can kind of hit the hole. Like when that starts to go, like he's gonna fall off real quick. He's not one of these guys like a Derrick Henry who can just kind of keep churning and kind of age gracefully. It's just not how I think James Cook is. So,
wow, I'm looking at keep trade cut, and Caleb Johnson's right above RJ Harvey, which is crazy to me. And
dude, the
that's
Caleb
something because
Johnson thing was crazy.
yeah, I was gonna say that's something because I don't like him, and also it looks like he's like down a couple spots too, which is
dude, Caleb
wild.
Johnson was crazy high. People were
Yeah,
taking him so early in dynasty drafts and rookie drafts. It's just nuts.
yeah. So I mean, give me RJ Harvey, right? Tied to Sean Payton, already running with the ones. He looked good. So for me, I
Honestly,
think wheels up for RJ Harvey.
would it surprise you if the Broncos have like a top 5 to 10 offense this year? Because I think it's very realistic, and if that's the case, like RJ Harvey's gonna be a smash. Right?
Yeah, no, I think that offense is going to be good. I know some people don't like Sean Payton or whatever, but if you remember back to when Drew Brees was playing with the Saints and Sean Payton was there, their offense was always really good. So kind of I think that things can translate a little bit over to Denver, right? Bo Nix is a solid quarterback. He can, also run on his own. And then outside of Cortland Sutton, there's still question marks. I'm hoping Marvin Mims is good, but Cortland Sutton's very good, right? So you have him, you have Evan Ingram. And then if Marvin Mims is a little bit better, yeah, I think this offense definitely can be top 8, top 5.
I agree 100%. Anyone else before we head out of here?
No, I think we're good. I was trying to remember one guy that did get. Who got injured? It was Tennessee.
Tajay Spears,
Tajay Spears.
high ankle sprain.
Yeah, and
Tony
so
the Pony, baby, wheels up.
yeah, that's all I was gonna say. Is if you were wondering if Tony Pollard's gonna have a great season, stop wondering because he's going to, because a high ankle sprain probably is going to linger a little bit.
Oh yeah, dude. Tony Pollard and Alvin Kamara in redraft this year is going to feed families. You can book that.
Let's go.
All right. We got another good weekend of preseason NFL football coming out. And then next weekend, we have some college football.
Let's go.
But yeah, preseason football this weekend. Hopefully you get to enjoy the games. Hopefully no major injuries, and we can kind of keep piecing together the puzzle that's out there. But thanks for tuning in, guys. Really appreciate it. And hopefully you catch us on the next one. Peace out.